Well, these rough brick walls, I want to make smooth, ready for papering or any other finish, without any plastering. And to do that, I've already started sticking up 3/8 plasterboard straight onto the brickwork. This is a method that's quite often used in new buildings because it avoids plastering. It also gives you some thermal insulation with the air space that you get behind, because these don't go right up against the wall. To do this, I want probably 3 lengths, 1, 2, 3, of 3-foot wide boards, which are easier to handle. And you've got to get those lined up. The wall is rough and it's bulging all over the place. So how do you do it? Well, you've got something to line up to here. That's the door frame. So starting with the door frame, I want a guide over here. And I've already fixed these little blocks. And then, having squeezed those on, find a straight piece of board for a straight edge and just check across to the door frame to make sure that if you were at level, you're not going to have a bulge in the wall pushing one of these panels away. So check up there, check on the one down below, that's all right there, and then check to make sure that your wall is vertical with a spirit level on there, on those blocks. Now, you've got those fixed and set to give you a guide, and it's very easy to cut this material, of course, so you can cut a little piece of the material just by scoring it with a knife, and then with this special plaster, I'll show you this. It's made for this job because it resists the suction of the wall. This is a special mixer. You can do it with an ordinary stick, but you mix that up till it's nice and gooey, creamy I think you'd say is the consistency, and then with a large trowel, some of that on your block, and then just press it onto the wall. I don't want this one because 2 are enough, so just press that up onto the wall and leave it to set pretty well before you start work. And I'm going to put 3 lines of plaster down the wall and also on the board. So let's deal with the plaster lines on the, get rid of this, on the board first, and at least on the wall first, 3 lines down the wall. If it's a very dry wall as this is, you need to damp the wall first. But on a new wall you wouldn't. This will get a grip straight away. Lovely messy job this is, but something rather nice about this part of it. I think it's rather primitive. Reminds one of sand castles, I think. But watch this method for running your strips along the board. First of all, fill up this little, just let me show you that. It's just a triangular trough with a little space at this end here for the plaster to run out of. Fill that up. And then run it along, just lifting it up at the back, all the way along about 2 inches away, bumping it as you go. A bit more in that end. we should just about get by with that. And the same running this way. It's a fairly simple way of getting your strips of plaster on. And now comes another struggle, because this again is one of those jobs where a little help can be pretty valuable, but it's possible to do it on your own. Got to be careful not to break these boards. Run that down and onto the floor, because there's quite a weight on it now with the plaster, and up against the wall, standing it on some blocks. And this is a thing that the plasterboard professionals use. It's something you could make, really. This is made of metal, but you could make it of wood. Little strap over here for your foot, a piece underneath on which it rocks, so that it rocks like that, and you just put it underneath this board like that, and squeeze it up with your foot until you close the joint. Now, having squeezed it up, perhaps better do that with the left foot. Squeeze it up and close the joint, and put some wedges under here, which remain in until it's set. I think that's wedged up all right. Now, this is beginning to stick to the wall, but of course it's not lined up. And to line it up, you want a fairly heavy board. This time you're only lining up to this board, because you already have got this one straight with your blocks. So you line up from the block to this board, make sure the edge is joining up just by pressing it in. And the bottom one. Now when you've got that edge level, you get this vertical. Just make sure that that's got to be pulled out a little bit. Make sure that's not bowing there. It's coming out a little bit there, so bit of a bang, and you get rid of the bow. That I think I'll have to just get up to the top of that and pull it back a bit. But you see the plan that you can adjust this by squeezing up the plaster. And when you get used to that, I think this is a fairly quick method. I wouldn't say any of this is easy, but it's a method that you can master fairly quickly. The joints, well, these joints are beveled on this particular board down there, so that if you're just going to wallpaper or finish it in that way, you can fill those afterwards just with plaster, a filling knife. Not till it's set, after it's set. Just plaster those joints up, and you've got a perfect wall. No plastering, no complication. Well, that's one way of dry lining a wall. There is another way. Instead of sticking these to the wall, you put them, first of all, fix wooden battens, get your battens lined up, and then you nail these boards to the battens. And I just want to show you that on the wall on the other side here, the outside wall where I fixed two battens. The idea is to nail the battens to the wall and then nail the plasterboard to the battens. You nail the battens to the highest spots on the wall. You can do that with masonry pins. Oh, incidentally, we're getting on with this window frame here. This is the kitchen window, of course, coming in here, which we're making a bit of progress with. So, the battens at 18-inch centres if you're using half-inch board, narrower ones with the lighter 3/8 board. Get those nailed where you find it's up against a brick. And you may have to wedge that out wherever you nail it, where it's standing away from the wall. Put in a wedge and then nail through the wedge. You can line these up, make sure that they're straight, not no gaps, and that they're all in line. Because with this method, you line up your battens instead of having those little blocks to help you. Oh, not sure whether I said that when I fixed the last panel on the other wall, I should have knocked off the blocks because the first two panels would serve for the lining up. Well, here you line up your battens. And this method can be useful on an outside wall if you want to insulate it. Of course, you've got this space in between. Incidentally, if it's an outside wall and it's a tendency to be damp, then these should be impregnated battens so that there's no danger of rot. Insulation can use sheets of expanded polystyrene in between these boards, which you can just hold with sticky tape until you put your plasterboard on. This will give you the equivalent insulation of a great deal, at least 9 inches more of brickwork, just fixing those panels in between there, which will of course be covered by the plasterboard. Or you can use plasterboard with aluminium foil already on it, another method of getting added insulation. It depends how much insulation you want and how much you're prepared to spend, which of the methods you use. But if you've got a cold outside wall, you can improve it quite a lot by adding some insulation. Well, just put another pin in here. These are masonry pins, of course, going straight into the brickwork. And when you've got those well fixed everywhere, then the plasterboard goes up onto there. And is nailed onto the battens in the usual way. You can fill these joints, use the tapered edge board, fill the joints as I suggested before, or, but of course you've got the nail holes to fill as well. Anyway, there's two methods of tackling this problem which could be useful even if you've got only a small area to deal with. Partitioning, of course, come back to later on. A lot of that to do, but that's all for now. So, goodbye now.